Hello students, welcome to Easy Elimu Learning Simplified. My name is Mr. Stanley Ombogo. So dear students, welcome back once again to another session. And just to remind you, previously we introduced verbs and we further stated that there are two main types of verbs. The first one being lexical verbs and the second type, uh, the second main type of verb being auxiliary verbs. So in the previous video, we expounded on lexical verbs. That is, we started by defining lexical verbs, and we said that they are primary verbs or action verbs in a sentence, and we gave example, that is words like run, walk, think, talk, and so on. So I promised to take you through auxiliary verbs, and the time is now here. So talking about auxiliary verbs, dear students, auxiliary verbs are also called helper verbs or helping verbs. So they are not the most important verb in the sentence, but they help in recognizing the tense, mood, or aspect. So we are going to see about that. So there are two types of auxiliary verbs. The first type of auxiliary verb that we have is the main auxiliary verb. That is also called the primary auxiliary verb. The second type of auxiliary verbs that we have are the modal auxiliary verbs. So allow me start, that is by looking at the first one, that is the main auxiliary verbs. So there are three forms of primary auxiliary verbs. Primary auxiliary verb that we also call the main verb exist in three different forms. So the first one is the form of the verb to be. Then the second one, we have the form of the verb to have, and the third one and the last, we have the form of the verb to do. So the three different forms of these verbs are listed below. They are tabled below. So in the first category, we have the infinitive. So remember, infinitives are special forms of verb that are made by adding to before the base verb. Infinitives are used in sentences when discussing, actions without actually doing them. For example, I can talk about to go. I want to go home. So that is an action that has not been, initiated, but there is possibility. So we have infinitives that is in the first category. Then in the second category, we have the tenses, that is the present tense, then past tense, and lastly, the past participle. So let us start by looking at the verbs that we have in the form to be. So in the present tense, we have am, is, are. Past tense, we have was and were. Then in past participle, we have been. So the second form, we have the form of the verb to have. So in the present tense, we have has and have. Then in past tense, we have had. Then past participle, we also have had. So the third form, that is the form of the verb to do. Under present tense, we have do and does. Under past tense, we have did. Then under past participle, we have done. So those are the three form of verbs that we have in the first type of auxiliary verb, that is the primary or the main auxiliary verb. So here are some examples in sentences. So in the first sentence, we have, I am not going to church today. So in that sentence, the auxiliary verb that we have is am, and it is in the form to be. Then the second sentence, we have learned a good lesson. So the auxiliary verb we have in that sentence is have, and it is in the form to have. Then sentence number 3, did you hear the bell ring? So the auxiliary verb that we have there is did, and it is in the form to do. So sometimes the primary auxiliary verbs act as main verb, and in such occurrences, they are the only verbs in the sentences. So, for example, if I say, I, I am, I am teaching, I am teaching. So, in that sentence, we have the auxiliary verb am. So, if we have a sentence where am is the only verb, for example, then in that case, we will say that it is the only verb in the sentence. So the 3 primary auxiliaries can be used as ordinary verbs. For example, he has a book. We have he is lazy. We also have he did the job. So we have has, is, and did, which are auxiliary verbs used as ordinary verbs. So these 3 forms of auxiliaries can also occur in the same sentence, unlike lexical verbs. Remember when we were looking at lexical verbs, we confirmed that it is impossible to use, that is, two lexical verbs in a sentence that is following each other. So unlike lexical verbs, these 3 forms of auxiliaries can occur in the same sentence. So to illustrate this, there is a sentence here. So the sentence is, he has been doing the job. He has been doing the job. So in that sentence, we have 3 auxiliary verbs. The first one is has, that is in the form to have. The second one is been, that is in the form to be. Then the third one is doing, that is in the form to do. So they can occur in the same sentence as seen. So let us look at some of the uses of the auxiliary verb have. So when have occurs independently in a sentence, it implies that one possesses or it indicates ownership. For example, in the sentence, she has a car, means she possesses or owns a car. When used as an helping verb, have carries the perfective aspect. Perfective aspect is also, known as the completive aspect. That is, they talk about actions that are complete. For example, the sentence below is in the perfective aspect. That is, I have returned the book. I have returned the book. Now, on to the second type of the auxiliary verbs, we have the modal auxiliary verbs. So, modal auxiliary verbs combine with infinitives to indicate permission, possibility, obligation, deduction, and so on. We are going to look at some of the uses of these verbs. So, they are used alongside the main verb, meaning that they cannot be used alone in a sentence. Consider the example below. I will have a meeting at 5 p.m. in the evening. So in the sentence, we have the modal auxiliary verb will used alongside the primary auxiliary verb have. So the modal auxiliaries cannot be used alone. Then some of the examples of the modal auxiliary verbs that we have in present tense, we have can, may, must, ought, shall, will. And in past tense, we have could, might, had to, should, would. Another thing worth noting, dear students, is that unlike primary auxiliaries, a single clause cannot have more than one modal auxiliary. So look at the example below. We must talk is correct, but we cannot we cannot have more than one modal auxiliary. So if we say, for example, we could must walk, that sentence is not, or that clause is not making sense. So we cannot have more than one modal auxiliary verb in a clause. So here are some of the uses of the modal auxiliary verbs. So they express different things. Number one, they can be used to express ability. So in this case, the modal auxiliaries that we have are can and could. We can also use them to express request. Again, here we have can and may. We can use them to express permission, and the examples of some of the modal auxiliaries in this category are may, can, could. Then again, we can use them to express willingness. And here we have can, could, and would. Another thing is that we can use them to express obligation. And here we have models such as must, ought, and should. Then lastly, we can use them to express possibility and probability. Here we also have can, could, may, and might. Lastly, we can use them to express certainty, and there we also have can. So you realize that can is almost in all the the categories. Dear students, that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you for staying tuned till the end, and remember to always keep it easy, Limo. Until next time, bye.